Okay, we are here with Margaret Quinones-Perez from the College Board. Margaret, thanks so much for being here. And why don't you tell us about why you're running for re-election and what's on your mind?
Well, I've been fortunate. I've been a resident of Santa Monica for 50 years, and I have been associated with education. In particular, I was on the Santa Monica Malibu School Board for 8 years. That's when my children were in the district. And then career-wise, my entire life has been in the community colleges. I have a really deep connection to Santa Monica. I went to school there. My children went to school there. Nieces and nephews went to school there. And I lost my family there. So for me, it's not just about an elected office. It's about really believing in an institution, I don't like that word, but a college that is embedded in a community, and it's about helping people, regardless what color they are, regardless of what age they are. It's my deepest passion in my life, is to be there in the community college to be able to help what's going to happen now in life and what's going to happen in the future in life.
Great. Well, we've got some questions for you. Wanted to ask you about in your questionnaire, you mentioned that recently SMC experienced potentially volatile situations and has been able to bring peaceful resolutions. This was in regard to, like, I guess, student protest and activism that were going on. What can you describe for those of us who aren't involved in the day-to-day of the college community? What were those situations that happened and what almost happened, I guess, or and how was the college able to find peaceful resolutions instead?
Well, there's a couple incidents. I'll talk about this year rather than the past. Um, First of all, we established what we called an equity center, which was to address all racial, religious, sexual orientation of students on campus, and what were their issues and how could they feel heard and acknowledged and respect. We luckily, under the leadership of Dr. Jeffrey, she established that, and as a board, me as a board member, I supported that. So in that, one of the incidents that happened was with a theater arts play, and it was where theater art professor had distributed a script, asked for a lot of students to come on board on the play, mostly African American students who could dance and sing, but they really didn't know what they were getting into until that they were going to practice. And when it happened, they found out that it was about a slavery play. And it was a very controversial play, a very painful play, that some students were conflicted. Do I want the acting experience? And do I want to depict a character in such a painful way and in an unacceptable way? So we had people on campus, faculty, some administrators, some students that were just hurt, really hurt about having the African American slavery experience depicted that way. So was I. So was Barry Snell. We were the chair and the vice chair. And so Dr. Jeffrey decided to go and talk with the students and found out how they really felt separate from the crew, separate from their peers, just to talk with them. How do you feel about it? And Barry and I kind of sat and just listened. We didn't talk, we didn't ask questions. And the students were able to open up and talk about what the issue was. Well, there's something that's called First Amendment and the Constitution. To make a long story short, they did a survey after we legally could not close down the play. We just couldn't. It would have been a violation. We were hit with an OCR, civil rights complaint and freedom of speech complaint. And the staff went in and did a survey, a private survey with the students in the play and say, well, given all the things you know now and how upset some people are and how some of you are going to feel like you're not going to be able to have this play on your record, how do you feel about proceeding with it? So they did an anonymous ballot, and the prevailing vote was that they didn't want to proceed with the play. So the play did not proceed. So right after that, the college came up with listening and talking sessions to work through the pain and the disappointment with the students and people on campus. Because some people on campus, in particular the African American, wanted more harsh movement against it. And as a college, I feel you have to bring people together. You have to bring them at peace. I don't have the luxury of saying, oh no, we're going to divide this and we're going to let you both stay angry at each other. And we're going to let you both be upset at the college. And we don't want you to feel like we're not acknowledging your pain. That's one. The other thing that recently happened was that we had not a very big, but a big protest where the pro-Palestinians wanted a table to talk about their issues. And then on the other side, it was Jewish American history. So the Jewish American history faculty and students wanted to have a table opposite of them where they got to celebrate the Jewish heritage contributions that they have done. And luckily, there wasn't any rivalry. If anything, it was nice to see. You could see some of the Jewish students, the pro-Palestinian students talking to each other. And rather than having such a huge police presence, we did have campus police there. There were some Santa Monica police, but away from the students, we had we had administrators there, people that students knew, associate deans, faculty advisors, so that they could be there and support them during that. So luckily, none of it blew up like at UCLA and Columbia and the stuff. So we do proactive things. We do things to get in there with them and talk with them and help them work through it and not let it get out of hand. I mean, you just can't ignore it. Some people say, oh, we'll just ignore it. It's not a big deal. That's not an option. And we also had talking seminars where we had a woman from the Holocaust come. We had somebody that talked about pro-Palestinian demonism, anti-Semitic. We had all those talks, and we had sessions where students could talk about it rather than letting them hear from each other where they're not really informed. And I think that's our role as an institution. How do we educate them? And then how do we bring them back together? Not that they agree, but how do you get them to talk to each other? So that's what we do. We immediately get involved. We immediately set up talking sessions. We immediately bring in seminars where they could reevaluate their thinking of how is it they're coming to those conclusions that you are. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And that's where we are today.
Great. Thanks. So let's go to Patricia.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi.
So
I know why you have that baseball field behind you. It's that beautiful husband of yours.
So speaking of beautiful husbands, I believe I saw yours in the newspaper last week for the 1970s Cal State protest.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. Anyhow, you all and Catherine Jeffrey have done a really marvelous job of handling things. Margaret mentioned early on having lost relatives in the shooting on the campus. Oh gosh, 12, 15 years ago.
10 years ago.
Was that all?
10 years ago. Mm-hmm.
You lost at least one member of your family. I
know. No, I lost two. I lost my brother-in-law and my niece, who was preparing to go there for summer school and was visiting my daughter. They were murdered on campus.
Yeah. I mean, so you've been through the best and the worst. On the play incident, which the CRJ group that I'm with, had gotten involved with that and asked whether has there been any changes in how a play was chosen initially because the person who wrote the play, who, should have the hair should have stood up on the back of everyone's neck when a white guy is writing about slavery from the point of view of a slave and saying that the slave had a male slave had a consensual relationship
Right.
with his owner. And because there's nothing consensual about slavery. I mean, there were so many things wrong with the play, but that the instructor was able to select the play. And is there any guidance for people for that part of the process?
Well, this is the key. At the time, my understanding is that that person was not a faculty in resident. They weren't even a part-time faculty. As you know, theater departments have a lot of liberties of how they want to do their performances, and that's what that faculty member thought. They thought in their mind that it was contributing, it was positive, and they made the judgment from doing that. We did as the administration, and we as a board did not know about it. So since that time, we've learned there's just so much vetting you can do because of academic freedom. We've never had this problem with other type of situations since I've been there, even as a student. This is the first time that's come to play. And my understanding that there are going to be steps put into place so that we can vet these situations, but also not infringe on people's academic freedom. Also, the play was not paid from college money. It was paid from foundation money that the theater department had privately funded, had privately gathered the money in order to pay that individual that wrote the play. So that's how it was under the radar. As you know from having served on a board, things like that happen.
You guys did a perfect job in handling it. I thought you did an amazing job. So
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Luis.
Hi, Margaret. How
Hi,
are
Luis.
you? And
good. How are you?
Good, thank you. And apologies for
How's
not being
Obi?
on camera.
How's
Obi is a
Obi?
little sick. He's a little sick, so that's why.
Poor baby.
That's why
Give him my
camera
love.
Will do.
I love
Thank you.
saying his name.
Yeah, little Obi-Wan. Yeah, first of all, just having been a student there while you were college president and just getting a chance to meet you then.
You mean a college trustee?
Sorry, college trustee.
Don't get me in trouble.
Right now. But, I've just always been impressed by the college and the leadership and just how forward thinking it has been, because we are seen as a very innovative and forward facing sort of institution. So all the innovations, Public Policy Institute, I mean, so many great initiatives. I'm curious what still is left. What is in the horizon for Santa Monica, and how do you plan to get us there? Do you have any ideas for the future, or anything that's going on that you can share?
Well, there's several things that have to happen. Number one, our enrollment's growing. We're up 8% from the time of the pandemic. That means local students. That means international students, but mostly local students. So that's a good part. The other thing is that where we're going as the colleges, we have to still adjust to that there are students that want to be on campus for enrollment, and there are students who want to be online for enrollment. So how do we balance both of those, making sure they have the right support systems? And the other issue is that how do we make a curriculum that's robust, meaning more forward thinking? For example, I'll give you an example, like our iClouding program, and coding seems to be pretty prevalent in the workforce area right now. And so we're lucky that at SMC we have a program like that, but we're trying to get approval from the state of California to make it into a bachelor's program where students can immediately leave, whether they want to go from finishing their AS degree Associate of Science degree or get the bachelor's degree at our institution and go immediately into the workforce and make significant amount of money. The other issues that people don't think about this is that not everybody wants to go through a long time of becoming a lawyer. A lot of students also want to become paralegals. And at my previous institution, my employer at El Camino College, they had a very strong, robust paralegal program that's approved by the American Bar Association. We have a pathway of law, but we don't have that accredited program. And it's not that hard to do. And I would like to see us bring a full, robust program at SMC to help students become a paralegal, where they can go with the AS degree and immediately go into workforce. I think as an institution, yes, we'll always be number one transfer, but we have to be an institution of how do we get students who have to work and take care of their family, can't go away to school and can't have that time to do it, but we can get them into the workforce so that they can provide for themselves and their families and move forward. We have to be more innovative on the cutting edge of something short term, but something that's financially best for the student.
Thank you.
Sam.
Hey, Margaret.
Hi, Sam.
Nice to meet you. I just wondering, because you put some very impressive examples of professional development programs. Just wanted to get your opinion on what you think is missing or what you want to strive for additional programs for professional development.
Well, like I said, the paralegal program, I know it's going to be a while because we're in queue from a lot of other community colleges in the state of California, but we have a high passage rate of our nursing program. I'd really like to see us expand our nursing program. The other big thing coming online is our student housing. And I see our student housing in two ways. I see it that it's a retention and a transferability program. We're going to be bringing in students that are unhoused, and students that are low income, and hopefully house them at our Bundy campus in partnership with a four-year institution. And why that's good is that, as you know about affirmative action, it's not as vibrant as it used to be. By our having these students living on the residence, if we have a four-year institution partner, that helps with retention of those students. And that also feeds into the diversity of the four-year institution so that underrepresented students and poor students and unhoused students can go into the four-year institution. I believe in what we call in counseling mirroring, that you see somebody who looks like you and you see a mirror of success. And that's what I'm hoping that we can do, is come up with those programs, one, to get them to work, two, to get them to transfer, especially with students have to face what my kids didn't have to face, have to go to work, have to pay for housing, have to pay for their schooling, have to pay to get to eat, have to pay to get to school and work. We have to come up with a comprehensive way to provide them that. Like now we have any line, anytime. Students can ride the Metro and the Santa Monica Blue bus for free. That wasn't around before. So I want to be able to enhance everything that helps with students with mobility, accomplishment, retention, and then continuing on either to work or to transfer. So for me, the big issue coming online would be the student housing component, along with the other developmental programs that I think we need to come up with. Does that answer your question?
Thank you so much.
Did I miss anything? Do you see anything I
you
missed
might-
that you want to see?
Well, I was just thinking for the professors, maybe a little something.
Oh, you mean in terms of housing?
Well, not only in terms of housing, but like for the anti-bias.
Okay,
different, like different things to help
Good.
them out so that they
I'm
can.
so glad you talked about that. Okay, so you just cued him to my brain. We started last year what we call an equity channel. So that's the simplistic way of doing, but they now have a group, a cohort of faculty from different parts around the campus that are working together to say, how do they change their teaching practices so that it's more equity centered? There's about, I think now there's about 30 of them. And every year they're going to bring in a new cohort of professors of how they can make their teaching methodology more culturally relevant and sensitive and more equity minded. I'm so glad you reminded me of that. So that started last year. So that's the good part about it, because sometimes you can't get people to take a look at themselves, and because sometimes we think, I was a professor at one time, oh, what I'm doing is fine, and da-da. No, sometimes you need to have a group with other people, be with another group and say, no, maybe that's not so great. Oh, I didn't know I could do this instead of that. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, thank you for all your service to the college.
Okay, let's go to Mike.
Hey, Margaret, so you've already touched on the area I want to talk about, which is, looks like at last we're going to get some housing on the land in the Bundy area. I think I already know, but just to be clear, what do you see that housing, the portion that's for Santa Monica College students serving? And then what role do you see Santa Monica College having in discussing with the UCLA what their portion of the housing, who that ought to serve?
Well, you're mentioning a name that's not supposed to be out there, but it's out there. We have not had those discussions because of the fact that they're doing the study of the land. There's 14 acres there. We had planned to originally ourselves, I think it was about 700 places for students to live. If a partnership comes through, we may be fortunate to maybe even double that. So apportionment would go to the four-year institution, and we don't know if they're going to be undergrad or graduate students. And then a big apportionment would go to our Santa Monica students, bigger than what we had imagined. The best part is that since any institution has, four-year institution has a great deal of experience about how to manage it, how to build it, how to make it conducive for students. We as an institution don't have to have that learning curve because we don't have it, but we have an expertise of a partner that could show us how to do that. And we wouldn't have to use all of our funds for that. Our major contribution would be the land, because we had hoped to get partnership money with the state of California. And then there were like 35 of us community colleges that put in for it, and only 3 or 4 were selected and going to be selected. So we were lucky that when we went out for these bids, we had 3 possible people. And then out of the blue, an institution came and said, hey, how about partnering with us? And so we're at the exploratory stage right now to find out how the land would be laid out, and then how much would be SMC and how much would be the other institution. My hope is it'll be at the higher end so that we can house more students there. I know there was word that some people were saying, oh, well, we need to keep a strand of those student housing for international students or higher paying students. And I'm going to be perfectly blunt with you. That is totally unacceptable to me. That was not what we told the voters. We said it was going to be for unhoused students and students of low income. As of today, I'm not open to that. It needs to be for what it was said it would be, because they're the ones that need it. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go to Isabel.
Yeah, hi, Margaret. So you have somewhat touched on this in other answers, and I'm just wondering if there's anything to add about it. We know because I mean, I'm such a great supporter of community college because it lets kids go up the socioeconomic ladder. They may be the first ones in their family to go to college, but also because of that, of the specific population, they may have more challenges with their income, family issues. You know, you touched on that. And the completion rates, I mean, I think are on the low side. I was looking and saw that to complete, which meaning either they get a degree, complete a certificate, or transfer, it's below 25%. The last study I looked at, and you know, you may know more about that, we had a goal from next year of getting up to 25%. And it also varies based on ethnicity, because some of the ethnicities had just a 5 to 10% completion rate. So I know you've talked to some of the solutions you'd like for retention. Any other ideas about helping raise the rate of completion so you know students can complete their programs and meet their goals?
Well, there are a couple of things that have been happening to change that. Some of it has to do with the community college system overall. The amount of credits that are being required to graduate, 60 credits. Sometimes you have to re-examine what that looks like. I would like to radicalize it and say, maybe for associate degrees, it needs to be different. It doesn't, and maybe for transfer, see, it's kind of out of our reach as a community college because they're established by the state of California. I think that that's why the associate degree and the certificates require less units and require less time to be institution. That's just the beginning launch. Then students, I've had students come back and say, no, I think I want to come back and get the associate degree. And then I think I want to transfer. And then it's finding the right comparability of a transfer institution that meets their life, meaning lets them work full-time and lets them go to school part-time. In terms of, I don't want to sound like I'm scapegoating people, but in a community college, we have the luxury and have the disadvantage. We need to take students where they're at. Mm-hmm. And that means if they're coming from a K through 12 experience and they didn't get the kind of preparation that we have to make up that preparation. Mm-hmm. And we're not a four-year institution say you have to be at this GPA level, you have to be at this reading level, you have to be at this math level. We're going to take you as you are, and we're going to help build you up to where you need to be able to get those associate degrees and certificates and transfers. So we have to give the time. That's why it takes time to get them to graduate and completion rate, because there is, I don't call it remediation because I think that's very deficit way of describing people. It's a developmental way of preparing a student to get ready. For example, my personal and professional biases, 18 to 21 years old is a real scary time for a young person. Yeah. And sometimes when they go to a four-year institution directly from high school, it's not the best thing. If you look at those completion rates, they're not that high because there's this psychological, social, economic development going on then that sometimes coming to a community college helps them sort through that and grow through that most of our transfer students are completing four-year institutions at 90% because we help them work through that. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to cop out, but I'm also not going to apologize for our students they come the level they come, and we take them where they are and we're going to build them up. You remember, we are a college, the community colleges used to have borders. You could only go to this school if you lived here and you live here. We don't have borders. We have students that come from Cudahy, Maywood, Compton, South Central, Santa Monica, Malibu, Beverly Hills, Los Angeles. They want to come to SMC because they know, in my biased opinion, how committed we are to their success. So yes, the levels are low, but they're growing, but we have to take them where they're at. They're not coming in at calculus level. They're not coming at English literature level.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go to Keith.
Hey there, Margaret. How you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
All right, it's great to see you. Hey, so clearly you're speaking our language, and speaking my language, especially as you just described the nature of development. And one could actually look at this similarly to some sports organizations that have academies and they develop young people from 12, 14, 16 up to get them ready to go into the Premier League. And
Mhm.
interesting to sort of see that kind of association. And I do agree with your sentiment about that. Um, and the kind of robust cloud computing practice that the schools continuing to move forward with. And I remember when Dean Ramos was really instrumental in bringing that forward many, many years ago.
Mhm.
And now trying to move that into a bachelor's is really fantastic to hear. And however you can have help to try and get that up at the state level. We're here for you for that. But my question related to that, so there's cloud computing, clearly the green jobs of the future. I'm
Mhm.
aware that the new BCAP, the Blue Economy Climate Action Pathways conference that just happened last month, that's being pushed forward. I mean, all of these new initiatives that again are looking at green jobs of the future. My interest is how do you see all students perhaps being at the table and reviewing these, amazing opportunities coming forward? Because sometimes what can happen is that some students may not avail themselves of these incredible opportunities, and then that kind of continues to bifurcate futures for people. So can you kind of let us know how maybe certain segments of the student population will have a good look at let's say the BCAP, cloud computing, and things like that?
I'm really glad you talk about that because I was talking about that just the day before yesterday. And part of it has to do with, which I learned, was the way it was presented to me. How do you create equity in these new programs like, the Blue Culture and iCloud? How do you do that? And one of the things that I learned was students being able to get internships. And this is the key. Not all students of color can afford to go do those internships. Maybe they pay them some money to do the internships, but if they're going away to it, they can't pay for their housing. They can't pay for the transportation. They can't pay for their just feeding themselves. So how do we make it so that it is equitable in a financial way so that they can go and they don't get excluded because they can't afford it? That just came up on Friday, as a matter of fact, because some people were saying, oh, well, you're not including students of color, and why is that not, why are you not doing that? And then when I talk with people in the program, oh, but that's not an issue. We're going to pay them a stipend. And then I asked, I go, but are you paying for their housing? Are you going to pay for them to live? And it's like, well, no, that's not part of the grant. Then it's not going to be equitable. It's only going to be for the student who can afford it. And that's not going to be all the students of color. I can say that with certainty. So that just came up. So that's something that I think we're working on, the programs that you have talked about. I haven't seen it come with the iClouding so much, but some of the other ones, the environmental ones, those are the ones that are having the issue because they want to send them out to another locations. That's the big barrier, is how are we going to work through that so that those students can go. And I don't know how we're going to do that yet, but that's the big problem.
Great, thanks so much.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Margaret. We're about out of time, but thanks for taking our questions and good to hear from you. We look forward to seeing you on Wednesday evening.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good Sunday, whatever's left.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.